Hello YouTube, this is part 2 of my labor and delivery story. So if you're interested in part 1 or you missed it, look that up. This is starting from about 9:30 a.m. on February the 7th, around the time that I got an epidural. Um, I got the epidural at 4 to 5 centimeters dilated. I believe when they checked me, they were like, yeah, you're a 4, almost a 5. That seemed to be a pattern through my labor. Whenever they would check me, they would be like, you're a 2, almost a 3. You're a 4, almost a 5. So I don't know if they were just trying to like be encouraging or if that was really the case. But either way, they were saying that I was, what did I just say? I wrote it down. Hold on. Yeah, 4, almost a 5. I don't remember about effacement. I didn't write it down. So that's when I got the epidural. And everything went great with getting the epidural. I can't remember if I was talking about that in part 1 or not. Sorry. But yeah, the anesthesiologist was really nice and everything was great. It didn't really hurt to get it at all. I don't remember feeling any pain actually getting it. So anyway, it was a 4, almost a 5. And then about 2 hours later at 11:30 a.m., I got checked again, and I was very hopeful that because I wasn't feeling any pain in those 2 hours, that my body was able to relax and maybe I would be, a 7 or an 8. When they checked me, they said I was a 5, almost a 6, and 80% effaced. And I remember being disappointed when I heard that, but when they said I was almost a 6, I did feel encouraged a little bit by that. So in those 2 hours from 9:30 to 11:30, I was in heaven. I felt amazing. I was joking around with everyone. I was just enjoying my husband. My sister was there. Everything was wonderful. And I was really feeling like I'm going to have an awesome delivery. And pushing is basically going to be a breeze because I could hardly feel anything. But I think I mentioned before, I did have feeling in my legs, like I could move them myself, and that was really nice because the first time that I had an epidural, my legs were just like really heavy and numb, and it was not a good feeling. So I didn't have that this time around, so that was nice. About 11, I want to say 11:30, 11:45, around the time that I got checked, the anesthesiologist came to my door and just checked in on me, and he was like, how are you doing, how are you feeling? And I was like, I'm wonderful, I love you, I was so happy. And then he left. About 15 minutes later, my husband said it was about a half an hour later, but I think it was like 15 minutes. I started feeling my contractions really intensely. Like, it was like I went from floating on a cloud to feeling every single contraction pretty quickly. It wasn't gradual like you would think. And part of me just felt like I was being a really big baby because, now I could feel a little bit of pain and I just didn't want to feel anything. But it really hurt. And I could feel like if they were big contractions or smaller contractions, I felt like I could feel her head engaging lower and lower. Anyway, so to be honest, it kind of scared me because I knew I was barely 6 centimeters dilated. And so I was like, oh my God, I have a ways to go and I'm already feeling like the epidural was wearing off kind of. So anyway, they gave me that little push button thing where you can like increase your dose or give yourself another dose of the epidural, however that works. And I did that, and I literally felt no difference whatsoever. So that was scary. I was not prepared for that. Yeah, women who go through labor completely naturally, you're amazing. I know that I'm sorry. I know that Pitocin makes contractions a lot more intense, and they don't come in like a natural rhythmic motion sort of thing. So I do think that was part of it, was being on Pitocin that made it seem so intense. Anyway, okay, so what happened next? So that was about almost 12 o'clock, and I was 6.5. Oh no, I'm sorry. I was, yeah, 6.5 centimeters dilated at 12:30 is what that's the last note that I took. So you can see where this went. So anyway, 6.5 centimeters dilated, and that was when the pain got to the point where I could not I could hardly focus. I could hardly have a conversation with someone. In between the contractions, of course, I could talk a little bit, but that was pretty much it. I started crying at one point. I remember telling a nurse, I was like, can you please check me? Because I feel like either her head is coming out of my body or I'm going to poop on myself. Because I felt so much pressure low down, like so much pressure. Like I felt like I was ready to push. And at that point, I remember her checking me. And again, this was around, 12, between 12:30 and 1. And she said that I was 7 centimeters dilated, and I felt like I needed to push. And so that was really confusing to me. Like, why was my body telling me that I need to push if I'm only 7 centimeters dilated? So it just kind of continued like that over the next hour. I would say around 1:30, give or take. I asked to be checked again, and they would have been checking me anyway, but I was just like desperate to know that I could push. All I wanted to do was push and get the baby out. I was like done with labor. At that point in time, I was thinking, how could anyone ever do this naturally? I want a C-section. Please, someone just cut my stomach, take her out. I need this to be done. And then I felt a lot of guilt because here I am sitting there with an epidural, feeling like I'm having a natural childbirth experience. So I don't know. I've never considered myself to be someone that had a high pain tolerance, but I didn't realize quite how little of a pain tolerance I have, if that's the correct way to say it. So anyway, all I really remember after that point was there was a nurse that came in and checked me, and I had a good experience with all the nurses up until this point. She was on her phone, like on a wireless hospital phone, and she had the phone to her ear talking to someone about a different patient, not me, and she would put her hand up me and is checking me, telling another nurse, not telling me, telling another nurse that I'm 8 centimeters dilated, never made eye contact with me, never spoke to me, and again, was on the phone while she was checking me, while I'm like crying and just trying my best to breathe and to focus. That was something I just felt like was completely wrong and really inappropriate. My sister and my husband both commented on that afterwards. I think they both felt like they didn't want to say anything because sometimes if you make complaints, you don't want it to be awkward during the delivery or make it a bigger deal. But that was the first experience that I had that was really not great. And then that same nurse a little bit later on did another thing that I'll mention. But anyway, so I was 8 centimeters dilated, and there's not really much to say, kind of the same thing that I've been saying. I was just in an immense amount of pain, just trying to breathe, trying not to push. I felt like my body was pushing her out, and I was trying to just control that. And finally, they checked me and said I was a 10, and I just had a lip of my cervix left, and they wanted me to start doing practice pushes. So I started the practice pushes, and right away one of the nurses was like, go get, her doctor. And so I knew that that was a good sign that I was doing something right, or she was down there and ready to come out. So that was encouraging. The doctor came in, I started pushing, and I kind of thought she would just like come out really quickly because I had been feeling all this pressure. And again, they kind of rushed to go get my doctor. But that was not the case really. I kept pushing and pushing and pushing. And I figured by that point, like her head would be out or something, but no, it wasn't. And so back to the nurse who did the thing with the phone when she was checking me, she would, what was bothering me was instead of saying, hey, if you open your legs up a little bit wider, your pelvis will be wider and that will help the baby come out. She would say, you need to open your legs up wider. And while she would say it without giving me a chance to do it myself, she would take her hands and like push my knees down and apart, which I understand she's probably completely right that that is an easier way for a baby to come out. But to have someone like not even give you a chance to do it yourself and just kind of like force your body to do something when you're in an incredible amount of pain is really frustrating. And she's lucky that I was so nice because I'm sorry, not trying to be full of myself, but I'm not someone who's gonna like kick somebody or cuss at somebody really. And I felt like cussing at her. Like it was that frustrating to me that she was just she just lacked that empathy that you would think a labor and delivery nurse would have. But I have to put in there, all the other nurses were fantastic. My doctor was great. So overall, it was a good experience. Anyway, so back to pushing. I felt like I pushed for 45 minutes. My husband and my sister said it was more like 20, so they're probably right. And her head came out. Her shoulder did get stuck, and I could feel kind of the tension in the room when that happened. I don't know how long it was for, but finally she came out, and I only had a 1-degree tear, which was amazing. I did not have an episiotomy, which I'm so happy about. The healing process has been so much better without having an episiotomy like I did in my first delivery. They put her up on me. Her name is Natalie Winsome. And, she looked at me, and all I could think was she just looked just like my husband. I couldn't get over it. And it was just amazing to have that experience for the second time and have her put on my chest like that. I know not everybody gets to have that experience. So it was just really great. So I'm going to cut this off and give a few more details about when she was born, when she was there, some of that stuff, and some of the things that happened at the hospital afterwards with jaundice. So if you're interested, excuse me, I'm going to do a part 3, so check that out. Thanks for watching.